Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received by one of our admins. The translation reads like this. I used to be a devoted Christian, the kind of a man who never missed a Sunday service. Each and every Sunday, I'll be at church. Even midweek, I was always at church. I was a man who would lead prayers at family gatherings, making sure that all of my relatives, they prayed. If you wanted a job, if you were looking for a job, I would always encourage you to pray. As for my wife, she knew that this was like my number one rule. No one goes to bed before they pray. I was a man who was known in the community as a man of faith. When people were experiencing challenges in their lives, they would always come to me. My name is Tabo, not his real name, and I come from a Sotho-speaking family, and we were deeply rooted in the Pentecostal church. My parents, they were strict believers, and from a young age, they taught me to fear God and to live by the Bible. Wherever I would go to, I always had my Bible with me. Growing up in a rural area in the Free State of South Africa, the church was not just a place of worship, it was the foundation of our lives. Every aspect of our community, it seemed as if it revolved around praying and going to church. I would often see my parents waking up really early, preparing for church activities. My mom was the leader of the women's prayer group. My father was a deacon at church. I grew up under their wings, absorbing each and every sermon and every lesson. My mom, in particular, she used to encourage a lot of young women from the church who really had good voices to go and try to record their music so that they can be great gospel singers. As a child, I had no reason to question Christianity at all. To me, the church was safe, warm, and always welcoming. It provided answers to the questions of life, and every sermon felt like guidance sent directly from God. I gave my life to Christ at the age of 14 during a revival at our local church. The pastor spoke with such conviction about salvation, the afterlife, and the importance of living a righteous life. I went to the altar, knelt, and surrendered my life. The moment felt pure and real, and I was a believer. But life is a way of testing your faith, and mine was no exception. In my early 20s, things started to change. I married a wonderful woman whom I'll call Lerato, who shared my faith. We both believed that as long as we stayed faithful, God was going to bless us abundantly. But soon, cracks began to appear. After a few years of marriage, we began to struggle financially. Lerato and I prayed day and night, asking God for a breakthrough, but nothing seemed to change. I could not find stable work, and the little income that we had was barely enough to survive. The frustration was building up inside of me, but I kept it hidden behind the mask of faith. Whenever we did not have anything, I would encourage my wife to pray. When I was going through a rough period, maybe at work, I would always encourage myself to pray. But I saw that things were not changing. As time went on, I watched others in our church as they were prospering, whilst me and my wife were sinking deeper and deeper into poverty. I saw my friends buying their first houses, cars, and even sending their children to private schools, whilst Lerato and I could barely afford to put food on the table. It did not make sense. We were faithful. We did everything. We were paying our tithe each and every month. We prayed, we fasted. Yet there was no blessing in sight. My faith began to crumble, and I became lukewarm. I started to wonder, to question the Bible. When I would be holding the Bible, I'll be like, this book, is it a novel? Is this fiction? If I had been doing something wrong, or if God had somehow forgotten me, I would cry and I would be like, God, have you forgotten me? Why have you forsaken me? If you are for real, why do you just keep quiet? The more that I questioned, the more that I felt isolated. Whenever someone would give a great testimony about how God has blessed them, I would feel really weird. I could no longer connect with the sermons that used to inspire me. I became bitter, wondering why God seemed to bless others but not me, especially those that were really close to me. They were the ones that were benefiting, it seemed, from my prayers. And I kept on questioning God. I still went to church, I still prayed, but it was just a matter of me trying to show people that I was someone that was holy. Deep down, I felt that there was a hole that needed to be filled up. It felt as though God had turned his back on me. I did not dare speak of my doubts to anyone, not even to Lerato, because I did not want to crush her, to tell her that God does not exist. I did not want to be seen as weak or lacking in faith. In our community, such confessions were seen as dangerous, an invitation to dangerous spirits. Then something happened that shook my world even more. One Sunday morning, as I was walking out of church, I overheard some of the elders talking about me. They were like, Tawa is a good man, but maybe God is punishing him for something. Maybe he's involved in some of the things that are not allowed by the doctrine of our church. Maybe there is something that is not right, the way that he is living his life, and that is why God is withholding his blessings. Did you see his shoes? The shoes that he was wearing. Their words pierced me like a knife. Here I was, a man who had given everything to the church, and yet I was being judged. I felt betrayed, not just by the people. I thought that these people, they were my spiritual family, but they had turned against me. For the first time in my life, I considered leaving the church as we were walking back home. It did not happen overnight. In fact, it was a gradual process. I stopped praying as often. Maybe during the day, if I used to pray 5 times, now I was doing it maybe only once when I would be eating. The sermons, I never wanted them anymore because my wife, she used to listen to these sermons on the phone. Whenever she would be playing these sermons, I would just walk out of the bedroom. I became more withdrawn, angry, and frustrated. Even Lerato noticed the change in me. She would ask, "So why? What's wrong? Why are you so distant?" But I had no answer for her. I did not know how to explain the growing void that was inside of me. Around this time, I started to notice something else. In our community, there were whispers about traditional healers, Sangomas. Some of the same people who sat with me in church on Sundays were visiting Sangomas in secret during the week. At first, I judged them harshly. How could they mix Christianity with ancestral worship? Did not they know that the Bible forbids such things? But then I began to wonder if they were onto something. I started hearing stories about people who had been struggling like me, people who could not find work, whose marriages were falling apart, or who were sick and had no hope. These people would visit a Sangoma and suddenly things would turn out to be great for them. They would find jobs, their businesses would flourish, and their lives would improve. At first, I dismissed these stories as nonsense, backward stuff. But the more that I struggled, the more desperate I became. If God was not answering my prayers, maybe the ancestors could help me. Maybe there was another way. One day, after weeks of thinking about it, that was when I made the decision. I was going to visit a Sangoma. I, Tabo, was going to visit a Sangoma. It felt like I was betraying God, like I was abandoning everything that I had believed in for most of my life. But I was a desperate man. I had reached a point where I did not care anymore. I just wanted my life to change, and I did not tell Lerato at first. She would have never understood. She was still deeply rooted in her faith, and I knew that she was going to be devastated if she found out that I was turning to something that she considered evil, but I did not see it that way anymore. I had come to believe that maybe there was a balance between Christianity and the spiritual world of our ancestors, and I was willing to explore. I sought out a Sangoma in our community. She was well known, even though her practice was somehow very secretive, but at her house, there were people that were always there. I wanted to believe that she had the answers that had eluded me for so long. The day that I visited her place, I was filled with both fear, guilt, and excitement. I shut down the Holy Spirit as he was telling me that the things that I was doing were wrong. I was supposed to return back home. Her home was unlike anything that I had ever seen from the outside. When I got inside, I saw that there were people that had their loved ones that were really sick. When she saw me, she did not ask any questions as such. It was as if she already knew why I was there. Then she was like, "You have lost your way, Tao." Her voice was calm but powerful. "You are searching for answers, but you will not find them where you have been looking. Don't you know that you people that call yourself Christians, you have been colonized so much that you think that all the answers can be found in one book? In one book, do you think that a single book can contain all the answers in this world? But you have come to the right place, Tabo." After my visit to the Sangoma, the lines between faith and ancestral spirits, they blurred. My journey away from the church had begun. I did not fully understand what I was getting myself into. I thought that my life was going to change for the better, that my ancestors would help me in ways that Christianity could never. And what I did not realize was that this new path would take me to darker places than I had ever imagined before. When I left her compound that day, I felt different. Somehow I felt as if I was empowered. She had given me a pouch of herbs, a pouch that was full of herbs as well as some bones, telling me to take it home, to place it underneath my bed. "This will connect you with the ancestors," so she said. "It will open your path," she said. I followed her instructions to the letter. I was so desperate for change that I did not even question anything. For the next few weeks, I began to feel a shift in my life. My thoughts were much more clearer, and I felt more control. I was in control indeed. I even managed to secure a few odd jobs, and for the first time in a very long time, I was not stressed about money at all. I thought that the ancestors were finally hearing me. It seemed like everything was going to turn around. But the more I involved myself in this new spiritual world, the more disconnected I became from my old life. I stopped going to church altogether. Sundays, which used to be reserved for worship, became days of ritual. She had introduced me to other Sangomas. Then there was this other time when I started learning the ways of traditional healing. I would spend hours with them performing rituals, learning chants and speaking with ancestors. It was like a different world, a world where power came from the spiritual realm and nothing was done without ever consulting the ancestors at all. You had to consult each and every time with the ancestors. At home, Lerato noticed the changes in me. She grew more and more content, asking why I no longer prayed or went to church. I had to lie to her, tell her that I was going through a phase, that I needed to focus on myself, but the truth was I was fully immersed in this new life and I was starting to feel things that I could not even explain. Strange dreams began haunting me. This was after I had taken this other trip and I had gone to Joburg, and whilst I was there, I came into contact with a man who was from Zim, who was a Sangoma as well, who had told me that if I could get him some South African customers, then we would be able to split the money. And that was what I started doing. I started working with that man. But from the time that I started working with this Sangoma from Zim, that was when the dreams came. I would see an old man who would be talking with me, warning me of dangers that I did not understand. As time went on, the jobs started to dry up again. Customers were no longer coming. Things became so difficult. Instead of me returning back to that Sangoma, I said that let me try something else. That was when I returned back to Jozi and I spoke with that Sangoma from Zim, and he said that the reason as to why I can't get the blessings from my ancestors, it is because I have not yet fully committed to them. I needed to go deeper if I wanted their full blessings. He said, you are not completely free from your old ways to receive everything. You must give everything. I did not understand what he meant at first. What more could I give? I had already abandoned my faith, stopped praying, and followed each and every instructions that my previous Sangoma had told me to follow. But this man told me that there was a bigger commitment that was needed. If it was possible, I could travel with him to his country, for he said that in my country we have this other mountain. It is a forbidden mountain. Only those that are spiritually powerful, they are the ones that can go into that mountain. He said that inside the mountain there is a waterfall, so he wanted to take me there so that he can wash me and the mermaids can bless me. So this man, he took me to his country, and when we arrived at his place, that was when I saw that indeed this man, he was rich. Being a Sangoma, it can make you to be very rich, because people, they have problems all over the world. He would show me different cars that had been donated to him by my own South African people. He would show me cattle that had been donated to him by some of the people whom he was saying were his customers from Zambia and Mozambique. This man, he had 10 wives. That is how you can see that he was very wealthy. He told me that he wanted me to become more like him. He said, you'll be given a very powerful charm by the river spirits, but you need to know that when they give you something in the physical world, you are going to see a snake. This snake is the one that you are going to be using in your consultation room. When people are consulting with you, then you will call upon this snake. Then the river spirits, they will be communicating to you through this snake. So we climbed up that mountain and we slept in that mountain. Early in the morning, he said that when the water is cold, that is when I was supposed to go and to be washed at the river. We went there, they stripped me naked, and I started free, and we went there and they took me to the river. The water was icy cold. Then they told me that I had to be washed so that the river spirits can accept me. I got into the river and I started shaking because it was really cold. After that, that was when we returned back. He then gave me a bag. So inside that bag, I really did not know what was inside of the bag, but it was really heavy. He said, do not open this bag when you are still here in Zim, when you are still on your way returning back to your home. Only when you have arrived home, that is when you are supposed to open this bag. So I traveled. That man, he gave me one of his sons who was coming to our country trying to look for work as well as some customers which he can bring back to his father. So when we arrived back home, I then started staying with one of my uncle in Johannesburg because I did not want Lerato to find out that this is what I was doing. Then I called her and she came and she joined with me. Since I was already making money, she quickly accepted that this was my calling to be a Sangoma. So I used a snake. The moment that I opened that bag, after I had found a room to stay, I saw that inside the bag there was a small python. As for this python, as we are speaking right now, this python, it is really big. It is so big, so much that it cannot fit inside the boot of a car. At the place where we are staying, I have another room where this snake stays. So if people come to consult with me, the snake is the one that gives me these prophecies. So this is my own story. Admin who helped us with this translation. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world. Yo.